Hello, and welcome to the Beautiful AI Podcast, brought to you by Perfect Corp, the leading provider of AI and AR solutions in the world of beauty and fashion. This podcast explores the many ways AI innovation is enhancing the lives of consumers and creating a more beautiful world. Join our host, technology thought leader Wayne Liu, as he talks with industry leaders about the AI innovations influencing the world today. If you're interested in learning more about the transformative impact of AI, keep listening.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Beautiful AI Podcast, where beauty meets technology. I'm your host, Wayne Liu. I'm the president and the chief growth officer at the Perfect Corp. And every episode, we explore the intersection of beauty, technology, and innovation with some of the brightest minds in this industry. Today, I'm thrilled to join by someone whose leadership in the clean beauty movement is inspiring and forward-thinking, Chris Payne. He's the CEO of Jane Iredale. If you are, even remotely interested in how this clean beauty is embracing cutting-edge AI and AR, you are in the great conversation now. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wayne, so much for having me. Great to be here.
Yes, so we met each other in some of these occasions and events, but it's really the first time we sit down together and talk about, the topic we got shared today. So, before we get into beauty and technology, I believe our audience would love to hear about your journey. How did you first find your way into the beauty and then eventually led you into the CEO of the Jane Iredale?
Sure. Well, I kind of took, a little bit of a different path into beauty. I started out as at a buying office for a department store back in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Dayton, Hudson, Marshall Fields, which, rest in peace, is no longer. But I was first an assistant buyer in men's sportswear, and I got moved into a merchandise planner for the Better Cosmetics buying complex, and got to first foray into beauty and skincare and makeup, working with some of the bigger established brands, and really fell in love with the beauty industry. Really, that intersection of right brain and left brain, and really was where I first got the taste of how big of an impact it can have not only on, say, a store or the commercial channel, but the impact it can have on somebody's life and the impact it can have on their day. So from there, I became actually an account executive for the designer fragrance division of L'Oreal, managing that account as well as some other Midwestern accounts. And then after a little while, they moved me to New York, and I worked first in domestic marketing for Ralph Lauren fragrances. Then I was head of domestic fragrances for Giorgio Armani. Then I was head of men's for the global or the DMI of Ralph Lauren fragrances. Then I actually made a switch into skincare at Lancome. And then after that long journey at L'Oreal, I made a big jump to skincare and more of this entrepreneurial kind of private equity backed kind of positions as the head of marketing and product development and digital for Clarisonic. And a couple of years later, we were acquired by L'Oreal. And then after a little transition, I moved back to New York, worked for another beauty company, and then ultimately ended up at PCA Skin, which is a professional grade skincare company. We sold that to Colgate-Palmolive. And then at the time, not long after that, Jayne had sold her business to a private equity firm. She's still very much involved, just she's not in the day-to-day anymore. They were basically looking for a new CEO, and I got matched up with Jayne, and it's been a great journey ever since.
Yeah, wow, amazing. So it's always fascinating to hear how leaders find their way into the world. But I think the most important thing is you mentioned you're in love with the beauty. That's very important. So that's a passion. That's a passion we commonly have. If you don't have that passion, it won't sustain. So great. Thank you for sharing. And then let's talk about Jane Iredale. Okay, so the brand has been a trailblazer in the clean beauty, even long before this clean beauty was a buzzword. So
Over 30 years.
yeah. So what do you think that's really set this brand apart? And then some of these exciting things you and the team are working on right now?
Absolutely. Well, Jayne was not a makeup artist. Jayne was not a chemist. She was not a formulator. Jayne was actually working on Broadway and film and TV. And she's always been a champion for women. And she noticed back in the late 80s into the early 90s, the impact that this stage makeup really at the time, you got to remember, early 90s, there was no clean makeup. There was no skincare makeup. There was no wellness was barely a word. But Jayne was always very much a firm believer in what you put on your skin, what you put in your body, and that's a very holistic approach to beauty. She noticed all these actors, actresses, models, their skin being compromised and triggered and breaking out and being inflamed and irritated. And she overheard a casting president of a modeling agency basically say that she doesn't really hire models with bad skin anymore because it's too hard to get them work, or the post production, and the artwork is too hard. And Jayne was incensed by that because the very things that's causing these people to have bad skin is now being a detriment to their ability to work and to succeed. And Jayne is a champion of women and of opportunity. And she was into ingredients, long before it was quote cool. And so she felt there was an opportunity to make better makeup. And she made a loose powder, which we still sell today, called Amazing Base. And it wasn't just about what she took out of it. She took out of it things that can trigger the skin, that can inflame the skin, that can irritate the skin. But she also put in skin loving ingredients, antioxidants, really a pioneer in mineral makeup in terms of a physical SPF. And from there, the rest is history. Dermatologists and estheticians started to realize they could use it for their patients who are suffering from breakouts and acne, post procedure, post laser, post peels, and have a better client outcome. And ultimately, help women look good, but also have great skin while doing it. It was never about compromising, it was never about sacrificing performance. It was about great makeup that's great for your skin. And that really ethos is what drives us today. We're not in this race to be the cleanest makeup line around because that's not our journey. Our mission is to create great makeup that's great for your skin. And so we're not in this, I think sometimes this overly marketed kind of gimmicky clean race. We're about having great makeup for women and to have great makeup that performs like skincare. And so, we've always been at the intersection of these two worlds. And what really excites us about the future is the amount of change and the amount of opportunity with ingredients and formulations has never been more exciting to be able to really push the envelope of great makeup and skincare fused as one.
Yes, absolutely. I guess that one thing really stand out from Jane Iredale is really you talk about the ethos and then the commitment to the skin first beauty. Not necessarily clean, you are not doing clean beauty for the sake of clean beauty, but it just happened. All the ingredient, the formulation is just for the best makeup. Okay, that's how it works.
We're clean because it's better for your skin, but we're not clean just to be a buzzword on a shelf.
Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, talking about this point, right? Of course, Jane Iredale has a long history, but today the consumer change, right? So it's different from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, especially with this Gen Z. They probably want more. They want the performance. They want the convenience. They want the personalization. Okay. So as a brand like Jane Iredale, so how do you strike the balance in between like staying true for the brand's legacy while meeting the modern consumers where they need it?
Well, I think it's a great question and it's a challenging one because there have never been more amazing brands and products and formulas and places to buy them, whether it's in store, online, at a professional. The consumers never had any more choices than they do today. That's also, though, can be an overwhelming situation. So we answer that by, I think, trying to be very thoughtful about not trying to be who we are not and trying to really know our customer, know our accounts, and know how to help her have her best day. We don't try to trace every fad. You know, roughly 2/3 of our business is complexion based products. We are not tied to the latest trend. We're tied to really a natural, clean beauty. And our product range is really full service. I mean, we do a ton of bridal makeup. We do a lot of special event makeup. We do a lot of red carpet makeup, but we're not fixated on being part of the next product or ingredient trend. We believe in great makeup that's great for your skin. You could argue we're kind of a no makeup look, a natural beauty look. We want to help her just have her best skin and have her best day stepping out that door. And so by staying true to who we are and not trying to catch every single trend that's happening, we provide better service to our accounts, our partners, and to our end home users because they know they can count on us for exactly what they're looking for.
Yes. So I guess basically stay true with your brand. And then because everybody, it doesn't really matter is Gen X and Gen Z or your millennial, they care about their skin. So that's a fundamental thing. They want a clean beauty. So that's why I guess that's how you stay focused and then try to embrace all this, the new trend. Okay. So yeah,
We don't want to change her. We want to bring
yes.
out her best. And I think we view ourselves as very much of a timeless brand. We've been around for over 30 years. The odds of us being around for another 30 years are very high because we help enrich her life like every day.
Yeah, and then bring me to the next question here is because, as you say, the brand been like 30 years, right? So you're looking for another 30 years. And then the brand, actually, the core competency and the core belief didn't change. But the way you do business probably changed a little bit, right? So in order to connect to the younger generation, I guess the technology probably is one of the channel you can talk to these customers. So Jane Iredale actually it's very advanced, being with the Perfect Corp. So thank you first for being our loyal customer for many, many years. You are one of this pioneer to using the shade finder. So let's talk about this. Can you walk through like how this tool, not necessarily the Perfect Corp tool, but all this innovation enhancing your customers' experience?
Absolutely. Technology is very important to what we do. We have a very meaningful online business, one that's an extension really of our offline business. And, we have some data, actual quantitative data on our customer. And both, compared to the overall prestige universe and as well as what we call kind of the skincare makeup universe, the Jane user wears more products on average than most of our competitive brands. But she's not necessarily what I would call a confident shopper in terms of adding to her basket and growing her basket in terms. She finds what she likes and she uses it. Technology, especially tools with Perfect Corp, allows her to have confidence in trying out new things online, whether that be a new type of product or whether that be a new shade. So it's very important, not just in the sales, but in the confidence of letting her play with products. Especially as a younger generation may not be in store as often as what was happening 20, 30 years ago. The consumer still wants to play. So the technology, you can fairly say it's just a requirement now almost, that's an expectation. So we want to make sure that we meet her, for what she's looking for in that experience to play. And it's been very beneficial for our website.
Yes. And how are the customer react overall? Yeah, you implement this great opportunity and then the great activation, and then you continue using that. So how customer act? What customers say about this?
Well, I mean, there's both qualitative and quantitative feedback here. Qualitatively, we hear tons of stories about how much fun it was. And at the end of the day, makeup should be fun, but it's allowed people to try things they wouldn't have necessarily put on their skin. That's a little bit of a commitment, even though, I mean, look, it's makeup, you can wipe it off, but it's still something you have to do. So being able to do it and look so real is a real confidence boost. But not only that, we have an in-house customer service team, and they actually use the virtual tool to help answer questions in terms of providing better service. Because it's one thing for me to tell you, what a product might feel like or look like. It's another thing to be having that conversation with the customer and they can experience it at the same time. So on just a customer service level, it's been a huge help for us. But also in terms of metrics, we have over 30 product families, that using the virtual tools. On average, the time spent is more than double with products that don't have try, significantly more than double. It's also almost twice as high of a conversion rate. And we have extremely high conversion rates compared to most prestige beauty brands. Our virtual try-on rates are almost double what our normal conversion rates are. And the average basket size is about 30% higher. So not only do we see qualitative feedback, but we see very significant quantitative numbers as well.
If you're interested in this conversation and want to learn more about AI solutions for your business, consider booking a demo with Perfect Corp at www.perfectcorp.com/business. Contact us today and see how our selection of AI and AR solutions can take your business to new heights. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear all these numbers. And then again, appreciate this partnership. And then we talk about this beauty industry in general. So we know this a very interesting or dynamic time for the industry. We have, as we mentioned, generational shift on the buying behavior. And then we have AI evolution. And then we also have a lot of policy changes, geopolitical things. So as we look ahead, okay, so we don't have too many chances to talk to a CEO like yourself, right? So from the major brand. So that's why we like to pick your brand a little bit, share with our audience. So as we look ahead, where do you think this is the biggest opportunity lie when it comes to technology improvement, the way people discover, try, and buying beauty products?
Well, I think there's a few areas, and to truth be told, I'm the CEO of Jane, but I'm definitely not the most technologically advanced or well versed. I think I'm very well versed in consumers and how they shop and how they discover and what they're interested in. So my words are going to be very limited at the end of the day. But I think that there's opportunity to continue to shift just the experience. And I think it's not just about the technology of the virtual try-on, but it's also about the experience of how the try-on happens, if you will, being more immersive so that when they're actually trying the products on, it's even smoother, even more effortless for the consumer. The more effortless it is and the more seamless the experience it is on their device, just the more it's going to become second nature to them and the happier they're going to be with the experience. I think second is also the timing. There's no doubt that we are all inundated with messages, emails, SMS texts, robocalls. We're constantly being hit with messaging, partly because of AI. The more we can not only deliver her the message that she wants, the creative that she wants, but giving it to her at the right time. So being more predictive with when and how she receives that information, I think is very important. But also, I think taking it a step further, it's one thing for her to try on, say, a shade or, try on it through different combinations of products. But I think instruction is a potential low lift. Sometimes in the beauty space, we can be a little bit in kind of our own little bubble about products and user knowledge. I think a lot of people out there, I don't even know if they honestly know how to use a primer. And I don't mean that in any kind of derogatory way. It's just that we sometimes in New York and in LA, kind of in between, can be in bubbles. So I think the more that people can be instructed on how to use products and what products are best for them, I think the better experience they're going to have. And I do think that AI and augmented reality can have a very big role there, a bigger role than what it does today.
Thanks for sharing this idea overall about the technology and AI. So that's great. So and then from my perspective, I think especially in the AI can have a many applications. But in the beauty world, beauty is really about personalization, as we keep on talking about, because you are putting something on your faces, right, on your body. So it's really personalized. So I believe AI and data, they can change the game. You also mentioned about all this data you get from this activation. So how do you see the role of a personalization embodied in beauty, say probably over the next few years?
Well, again, I think it goes back to how all technology over time, it's generally about how do we improve somebody's life, somebody's experience. I don't think this is dramatically different. I think that if you look over the last 20, 30, 40 years, the messaging has become more precise, or the targeting, I should say, has become more precise, more personalized, whether that go from just, you know, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was broadcast TV, print, billboards, out of home, in store. It was very broad. You had some specialization, but it was very expensive to do specialization. I think over time, you've seen the ability to be more and more precise every year, every month, every week. So precision is going to continue to march down that path. AI should help us be even more predictive, not only of creative and messaging and of recommendations, but again, I think time of day becomes even more important because there's no slowdown in how much we're being reached out to as customers and as brands. So I think people are going to expect to be receiving what they want, and not just the message itself, but when they get the message and where the message is delivered. And I also think that personalization and the recommendation tools, that's where there's even more opportunity. I think, in the last several years, it's been fairly, I mean, even though there's obviously a lot of advanced technology that goes into it, it's still somewhat rudimentary in terms of products that you've bought, looking at, big data in terms of determining recommendation engines, et cetera. But that's using past data and large data sets to predict future behavior. I don't think it fully captures yet the experience of discovering something totally new. I equate that to when you would just, when you're more back in the day of, in-store shopping, you were open to all, I mean, this still was due to what the merchants would carry, but what you exposed yourself to was a little bit broader at times. So I think that there is this, and again, I'm not a technical person, so you have to kind of bear with me, but you don't always know what's there. If you only base everything on what you've purchased, it's hard to know something totally new. I mean, there's an old adage of, back in 1900, if you asked somebody, what was a better way of transportation, it wasn't a car, it was a faster horse. So the ability to do something totally new, I still think there's a bit of a gap there in terms of technology and data and being able to truly inspire something new. Now that's where people come in. And that's where founders come in. And that's where chemists and formulators and ingredient suppliers come in. But inventing the product or inventing the formulation in an era when we're inundated with newness, I think is becoming both a bigger opportunity and yet harder to do at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Especially you mentioned about not really a technical person. Actually, I think that can be an advantage. Honestly, because you look at the broader, customer experience and the brand's identity, and then you start to decide the technology direction. So actually, not being a technical person is a one of the advantage. The reason, and I'm going to ask you another question because in our audience, right? So it's a lot of executive from the beauty brand or fashion brand. They are not technical. Okay. So that's why not being technical doesn't prevent you from moving, as a good example. So can you give our audience some advice if they are about or they are thinking about to implement all this AI technology? How should they start it? How should they embrace without the fear?
Well, I think that there's a few guardrails or a few sort of North Stars that you want to kind of keep in mind. One, is there something that you're trying to improve? Is there something you're trying to fix? Is there something you're trying to do a better job of? You can't just say, hey, I'm going to add AI to my mix. You have to have a bit of a brief, a project plan of what are you trying to do? So like, for instance, when we spend a lot of the time and energy with Perfect Corp on really advancing our AI and our AR capabilities we launched a liquid foundation earlier this year. We knew we had to be even better at shade matching. Our key product, our hero product, is a pressed powder that's over 30 years old, and it's amazingly over 5,000 5-star reviews, et cetera. But powder's a little bit more forgiving when it comes to shades. You can probably wear more than one shade technically, and it's easier in a way. But liquid is a bigger market, and as a physical only SPF product, liquids have been harder historically, but today that's all different. So we spent 3 years developing this amazing formula. It's broken records for us. But we knew that because it's a liquid, shade matching is a trickier proposition. And we needed to have the very best when it came to AI and AR to really make that shade matching experience happen. And it absolutely did. But that came from a mindset of we have to make sure the customer experience matches or exceeds what she can get anywhere else. Otherwise, it wasn't going to be as successful launch as it could have been. But that's an example where we didn't just add it to add it, we added it with intent. The same thing with, we have a very loyal customer. Our retention rates year over year are almost 100%. We definitively want to increase basket size because we know that when we have a customer, she's very likely to stay with us. So we use predictive technology, AI, and virtual try-on to help grow basket size. Resulted in a 30% increase when they use AI. So again, that wasn't just adding it because it's neat or it's trendy or it's what people are doing. We did it with an intent that informs then how we work with you. It informs how our teams work together so that we're not just adding tech to add tech. We're doing it to solve a specific problem or provide a specific, growth strategy.
Yes, great advice. You do this with the intent. I think that's really, really important. Just like you are clean beauty, but you are not really promote clean beauty because you just did for the goods of a consumer. So what happened is, I guess you have a goal, right? You have a business goal. You want to serve the consumer. And then you look at what AI can help you to enhance your experience and then to help you to achieve the goal. So that's why you have a core idea and then you're using technology to help you. Okay, that's amazing. That's great. I believe this the North Star, right? So they also apply to many other brands. So I believe our audience really learn a lot. Okay, so before we wrap up, I always like to end this visionary note. Okay, so we know you talk about next 30 years. So what excites you more about where the beauty industry is headed, and how do you see Jane Iredale continue to lead the way?
Well, great question and a big question. I think there's a few things that really inspire us. I think that what Jane stands for, which is skincare makeup, we're clean because it allows us to be the leader in skincare makeup. I think that that's only going to become more important. I think the convergence of skin health and of beauty and makeup, personal care, those people are not really looking to sacrifice or to make trade-offs. They might trade up or down the spectrum in terms of price based on self-interest, but the idea of duality and multi-purpose of products, I think, is only going to become more important. And we are very much at the epicenter of that, which that's an exciting place to be. I also think that the role of the skincare professional, the dermatologist, the esthetician, the makeup artist, I think that they are going to become even more important in the years because people are only going to care more about their skin health and their well-being. And I think in a world where, let's be honest, like AI can sometimes also be a little bit overwhelming in terms of where to turn and, where's the information, the source of truth, if you will, the professional becomes even more important. And we're very proud of that heritage. And so that we believe we're going to be a part of for a very long time. So I think the professional channel, the growth that's happening there, the expansion that's happening there, it's at a very exciting time. And then lastly, it's really the ingredient suppliers and I think the formulations. There has never been more desire for quality of products and formulas and demanding by the consumer of efficacy, of performance, of safety. Anybody, for the most part, can make almost any product out there. Not everybody is committed to making it as good as it can be. And I think that when you're in the professional channel, when you have a 30-year history like we do, it gives you a certain sense of duty and obligation to those consumers and those partners. And we're very excited about it.
Yes, absolutely. So the beauty is not only skin deep, actually is reflect your internal like a health condition, right? So it's more like wellness. It's really aligned with Jane Iredale's goal. So that's great. Chris, it's been such a great conversation. I love hearing how your brand, so rooted in the conscious beauty, is embracing the next generation technology to elevate the consumer journey. Thank you again for your time. I know you are super busy. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Wayne. We are very proud and very grateful for our relationship and partnership with Perfect Corp, and we're really looking forward to continuing to build on that.
Yes, same here. Okay. And to our listener, thank you as always for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with anybody curious about where the beauty and AI are heading next. Until next time, stay inspired and stay beautiful. Thank you. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed listening to the Beautiful AI podcast. To continue exploring the world of beautiful AI and technology innovation, subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to join us for our next episode.